Hello everyone and welcome to the debut video of Shawn's Showcase Cinema. I'm Shawn and I will be your guide as we review some of the best movies there are. The criteria for this is simple. If I like a movie, I'll review it. There are no restrictions other than that. Any genre, any period, any director, any box office result, none of that matters as long as I enjoyed the movie. And boy, will you be surprised at some of the movies I like. And for those of you who don't like spoilers, don't worry. To the best of my ability, these videos will be spoiler free. Now, being a Gen Xer, most of the movies on this channel will be prior to 2000, maybe up to 2010 in a rare exception. Now, this isn't to say that there aren't good movies being made now, but in my obviously biased opinion, these movies that came before are just better in general. So, before we jump into the review, make sure to click those like and subscribe buttons before you leave. And be on the lookout for live streams. We'll have a wide variety of guests in an hour-long late-night talk show format. We have lots of fun stuff for that planned, so make sure to hit those notifications so you don't miss out. As a final note, if you have a movie that you'd like to see reviewed, just type #suggestion in the comments. Tell me the movie you'd like to see, and if I like it, we'll put it on the list. So that's it, folks. That's the channel intro. And now, on to the review of one of my favorite movies of all time, The Final Countdown. So here's a synopsis of the movie. The Final Countdown was released in 1980 and released on August 1st. It comes in at a comfortable 1 hour and 43 minutes, and it's directed by Don Taylor, who directed a movie called Stalag 17, and he did a movie called Escape from the Planet of the Apes, as many of you know, and many others. Now, this movie was filmed almost entirely aboard the USS Nimitz and included over 40 real active service members who served as background and extras and things like that. As far as box office, the movie cost about $12.5 million to make and only returned $16.6 million. And for United Artists, who released this movie, that was pretty much a flop, considering that the theater is going to take half of it. You've got marketing costs, etc. So the movie just didn't do very well. The movie stars Kirk Douglas, who doesn't need any introduction, Martin Sheen, of course, James Ferrantino from Dynasty, Catherine Ross from The Graduate and The Stepford Wives, and Charles Durning, who has about 218 movie credits as an actor, including The Muppet Movie, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, and so many others. And another fun fact about this movie, that we are going to see 14 different aircraft styles appear in this film. The Navy really didn't pull any stops when promoting this film and giving access to the filmmakers to just give us an awesome movie. Okay, so let's talk about this movie a little bit. Now, many movies have been made as recruitment tools through the history of cinema. And when thinking of this, one conjures images of Top Gun Maverick, D-Day, The Longest Day, The Hunt for Red October, Crimson Tide, and many, many others. Now, military movies and especially war movies had more or less gone by the wayside by the 70s, and one could argue that the country was just tired of them. And there's a plethora of war movies and films that came out shortly after World War II and lasted all the way up to the 70s. And we also had the Vietnam War, and that divided the country, and war was televised and ugly, and people just didn't want to see it so much anymore. But by the time 1980 came along, Hollywood began dipping its toe into the military movie waters again. And so here we are with this 1980 science fiction Navy recruitment tool called The Final Countdown. Now let's jump over to the section we call Back of the Box, where we read the back of the box. And for those of you who grew up and lived through the video store era like I did, usually all we had to go on to know whether or not we wanted to rent a movie was a picture on the front of a VHS tape and one or two paragraphs on the back of the box that described what the movie was about. So let's see what the back of the box says for The Final Countdown. The time is now. The place is aboard the USS Nimitz, America's mightiest nuclear-powered aircraft carrier on maneuvers in the Pacific Ocean. Suddenly, a freak electrical storm engulfs the ship and triggers the impossible. The Nimitz is hurtled back in time to December 6, 1941, mere hours before the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. As the enemy fleet speeds toward Hawaii, the warship's captain, a Defense Department expert, a maverick air wing commander, and a desperate senator in the Roosevelt administration must choose between the unthinkable. Do they allow the Japanese to complete their murderous invasion or launch a massive counter-strike that will forever change the course of history? Catherine Ross and Ron O'Neal co-star in this spellbinding sci-fi action hit filmed on location aboard the USS Nimitz with the full participation of the U.S. Navy and the ship's crew. Now, before we go any further, there are a couple of small mistakes here in the description that I would like to call out for you here. Number one is that the Air Wing commander, played by James Ferrantino, is not a maverick. He's very straightforward. He's very determined, has a very fixed moral compass, and he's not a risk taker. He's not anything like that. So that is one little bit of an error that they made on the description. And then the second one is that it describes the senator from the Roosevelt administration as kind of being involved in choosing. That really doesn't happen. The character is just more or less kind of in the background and isn't made aware of anything that's going on. He's actually kind of the everyman in this movie. So that is just one little mistake. So why this movie? Why do I like it? Well, the first time I saw this movie, it was around 1982, maybe 1983, and it was on television, which is, I think, where most of us would have seen this movie, given the lackluster performance at the box office. And my guess is that United Artists probably figured that Kirk Douglas, who was 61 at the time and still a very active performer, would be a good draw and attract a decent licensing fee for the networks. Of course, this is just my guess, and at any rate, being an 8 to 10-year-old boy at the time, I was absolutely drawn to this movie for quite a few reasons. For one, my dad was a Navy veteran, and I just thought that was the coolest thing. And even cooler than that is that he served on board the USS Oriskany, which was an aircraft carrier. And he served during wartime, which made him even more awesome to me. And now let's not forget the fighter jets. I mean, what little boy in the 80s didn't like fighter jets? I mean, especially cool-sounding names like F-14 Tomcats, which had awesome skull and crossbones painted on them. And adding to all that coolness, there's absolutely authentic military stuff in this movie, and there is a lot of it. We have a super cool time travel story, a what if scenario, and some really cool ethical questions. It very much keys in on a lot of the features that make The Twilight Zone and Outer Limits such wonderful shows for so many people. And throw in a convincing Kirk Douglas as the captain of the ship, Martin Sheen, a cute dog, and a dogfight between Japanese Zeros and F-14s? Are you kidding me? You've got a recipe for an almost 2 full hours of coolness. So my final thoughts on the movie. The Final Countdown is a sci-fi, what-if, alternative history, military drama. There's really no one genre to put it in. I mean, and I think that's kind of what makes this movie so unique. And it's one of those movies that comes up in a conversation with your buddies, and you're sitting there, you're talking about some cool movies of the past, and then someone says, hey, you guys remember that cool time travel movie with the aircraft carrier? And suddenly everyone says, oh yeah, that movie was so cool, I loved that as a kid. And it still holds that fascination for me today. So, but critically and objectively, The Final Countdown is a bad movie. The music score leaves a lot to be desired. That acting is a bit wooden, and there are some very obvious cuts in the movie where it is apparent that there were a lot of clips and scenes just left on the cutting room floor. And in a lot of ways, it's like this movie doesn't know what it wants to be, or maybe it wants to be a lot of things. Now, usually this is a bad thing, but in this case, and for some reason, it's just not. I can't explain why, and in the end, I don't think we really need to. What matters is the movie is in the hearts of a lot of people, even if they forget about it sometimes. So, if you're into time travel, history, military stuff, especially cool aircraft carriers and fighter jets, and you're into ethical and philosophical questions, the kind that you'd like to see in the Twilight Zone and the Outer Limits and shows like that, you got to check out The Final Countdown. It's one of my favorites, and it might be one of yours too. All right, everyone, that's it. Thank you so much for your attention. Go ahead and drop a comment in the comment section. Hit that like and subscribe. And we hope you really enjoyed yourself. Keep an eye out for more movie reviews down the line, live streams. And remember, if you have an idea for a movie that you'd like to see reviewed, type hashtag suggestion in the comments area with the name of the movie. And if I like it, we'll review it. That's it, everyone. We'll see you down the road. Take care.